Take a look around. Abundance will abound. The problem is the solution. Just depends on your perception. Try to change yourself before the world.
We have more than 50% of the world's population living in urban environments. By the year 2030, that's projected to go up to be about 60%. In the United States right now, it's actually more than that. We're probably more at around 70 or 80% right now. But what this means is essentially we've become an urban species. For the first time in history, we have more people living in urban environments than in rural places. What this all means and how this is all going to play out is uncertain. There's both positive and negative aspects of this. But what we do know for sure is that if we're going to have serious conversations about making a transformation into a more sustainable, equitable, just, and healthy society, we're going to have to look at the city and figure out how to redesign it so that it's capable of essentially providing its residents with more of their own needs, while simultaneously regenerating the health of both its ecological and social systems. Resource for everything. You can prepare the most healthy soils with beautiful compost and do everything right, but if you can't maintain proper soil moisture content, you might as well not bother. All bets are off at that point, because the microorganisms in your soil are going to start to die, your plants are going to become susceptible to disease and to pests, your soils are going to dry up and blow away. It's a major issue. And then extending that beyond that level of concern, developing mutually beneficial relationships with the urban ecosystem itself. We need to be thinking about the health of the waterways that move through our urban environments, the streams and the rivers, and what impacts them. And stormwater runoff, which majorly impacts the health of urban environments. Combined sewage overflow, which is what you see occurring right here in this photograph. So a lot of older northeastern cities and midwestern, this is actually a map of all the cities in the United States that have combined sewer systems. There's a fair number of them.
Rochester.
Yeah. What we have is one set of pipes in the ground that, as you can see in the photo, handles sewage discharge from houses, stormwater runoff into storm drains, and also industrial wastes go into this one set of pipes in the ground. Any newer modern city puts two sets of pipes in the ground. One to handle stormwater runoff, which is not a great thing in and of itself. But they keep that at least separated from sewage and industrial effluents. But these older cities, we just have this one set of pipes, which creates a lot of problems. Would be to have one that has a removable lid. This is one that somebody gave me. I didn't build this one. When I make rain barrels, I would actually cut the entire lid off the top. I'll take a jigsaw or like a reciprocating saw and cut the whole lid off. But this will work fine for a demonstration today. Dip a bucket in there and carry it over to vegetables. Bucket watering gets to be a drag really fast. So from there you can add things like a tap in the bottom. People can come, if you want to get a closer look at this, you're welcome to come up. And attach a hose to it so you can use gravity pressure to move the water out and get it to where you want it to go.
Here with Scott Kellogg, we just experienced his urban hydrosphere workshop. It was really awesome. I got a bunch of wonderful ideas, and we're just going to ask him a few questions about what he's been doing. If you could just tell us a little bit about RUST, I was actually really interested in that.
Yeah, RUST stands for the Regenerative Urban Sustainability Training. It's an intensive, weekend-long workshop in building resilient socio-ecological systems in today's cities that we run at the Radix Center in Albany, using it as a teaching model, learning a lot about all the various systems we have there, including aquaponics, season extension, micro livestock, composting, rainwater collection, bioremediation of toxic soils, whole variety of systems, and actually using the center itself as a teaching model so students get to directly engage with these tools and put their hands on them and get their hands dirty and learn from them in that regard. It's a really fun experience. We do work trades and scholarships, trying to make it as accessible to as many people as possible. We've been doing it for probably almost 10 years now.
Awesome. And then if you could just tell us a little bit about your book.
Sure. That's a book, A Toolbox for Sustainable City Living, a do-it-ourselves guide, written by me and my wife, Stacy Pettigrew, published in 2008 by South End Press. It's basically a collection of systems and tools and technologies and ideas usable by urban residents to live more sustainably in the urban environment. Again, everything from aquaponics to constructed wetlands to composting to mushroom production to bioremediation, a whole variety of systems, and beautifully illustrated by Juan Martinez. With lots of how-to examples and diagrams to show folks how these systems can be applied in their own backyards or communities or neighborhoods.
All right, and is there a website that people can find more information about what you're doing?
Yeah, our website is Radix, R-A-D-I-X, center.org.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
we actually list a lot. I think we've got the largest collection of spawn, mostly native strains from North America. And that's important. We're going to talk about that. I have over 200 species in my lab. I haven't updated the slide, and I should. And when you have a lab, it's almost, I'm addicted to collecting and finding and cloning things. All right? So don't get too close. And then remediation, that's a spin-off. So in order to get to remediation, you really have to be a good cultivator, because we're going to talk about biomass expansion. How can you let a fungus do what it needs to do if you don't know how to expand it? Does that make sense? So this is kind of going to be a primer to mushroom cultivation. You could leave this class knowing how to grow some mushrooms. Tomorrow is actually a good one. It's going to be expanding on straw and waste. That's a really, really good one for biomass expansion. So consider maybe those other modules will complete this weekend if you come. All right. Today we're going to learn how to do contamination out of soil and water. Break things down. This is what you want to see. So whenever I'm doing a contaminant on a plate, this is exciting. You know, I get goosebumps. If this gives you goosebumps, something's wrong with you.
That's
in a good way.
If you put whatever you're trying to destroy on the plate, and that's actually the mushrooms breaking it down.
Yeah, that's its digestive fluid just raining down on it. And when you do this, I could take this with a hypodermic needle, pull it off, put it back onto a plate, streak that same mold, and I get 100% inhibition. So what we've done with the jack-o'-lantern is we've created and discovered a whole new class of natural antifungals, right? They haven't been named. So we had to patent this before somebody split up. If you have herbicide on the ground or in grass, you can get rid of that. If you have a little hydraulic fluid that comes out of the tractor, that's easy. We're going to get rid of that today and figure it out. All right. There's pesticides. I'm going to talk about which ones are good for breaking down different mushrooms. Chemical PCBs, hydrocarbons, those are more of the brownfield sites, you see now. A lady called me from Texas, and she said that a lightning hit a electrical capacitor on a pole right over her organic garden. And she's a writer, and it blew up. The fluid went all over the garden. It killed everything. And I remember the company saying that it was going to be okay to not worry about it. And I said, I think you need to call the Department of Health Environmental Control. You know. So one of the things she was doing was asking about remediation. So we're going to follow up. But that's a thing. If the company's not going to do it, you can do it yourself. All right. Location is everything. If you want to keep it a racehorse, does that make sense? You keep it eating and colonizing. So you have your one bucket. It's going to hit the walls. It's going to start thinking, I'm going to start transitioning to fruiting, but you're not going to let it do it. So you're going to make 10 buckets out of the one bucket. Biomass. And you can keep doing that if you just need biomass until you have a whole dumpster full.
How do you do that? You take some out?
Just take it out, or take the whole thing and just break it up and make 10 more buckets with more cardboard and more media, okay? You let it colonize first, completely, and then you break it up and just keep blasting it out. Now, this was our system in Haiti, and we do this, but 9 of those buckets, we would make 10 buckets for fruiting. This is nothing to do with remediation. This is food.
All right, guys, we're here with Trad Cotter, the mycologist expert from Mushroom Mountain in South Carolina, and he just did a workshop on mycoremediation, and we're just going to ask him a few questions. If you wanted to introduce yourself, anything I did, anything I missed.
My name's Trad, and I'm a fun guy. I study mushrooms for a living.
What's your favorite mushroom?
Oh my God, it depends. Whatever's standing right in front of me. It's just because, you know, you could either be hungry and it looks good, or it's doing something, you know, unusual. I just like studying fungi every chance I can. So I'm not going to pick favorites.
Any new research that you would find more cutting edge in your field over the past year or so?
I'm not sure what everyone else is working on, but you know, we reviewed some things right here at the end that I think are just fascinating, that keep me up at night. There are the novel antibiotics for drug-resistant bacteria and pathogens. Could be a whole new way of looking at our medical system and how things are handled. I think right now we are kind of treating ourselves like cattle and mass inoculating ourselves with the same stuff, and we're running into problems, and it's not working. It worked for a while, but so I think that, you know, tapping into the fungal kingdom, looking for novel solutions is a good, you know, it's a good tactic for us, and there will be less problems in the future if we kind of stick to it. The plastic-eating fungus thing is really cool. If you do find a mushroom growing out of plastic, turn it in. But some have been found in the Amazon, so you know, mushrooms are everywhere. Just realizing that we can use them for recycling, for medicine, food, fiber and fuel. All those things, mushrooms can do it. So we need more people understanding how they think and how they operate, so we can get some, you know, research and results.
All right, and just one thing you would give advice to somebody that's looking to introduce themselves into mycology.
Something to get them started?
Yeah.
I mean, I would start with something as simple as just recycling paper and cardboard, or even coffee grounds, with a starter culture, an oyster mushroom, because that you immediately have, like, I want to say you have a bond with it, but it's not like a dog. But you take care of it, you can watch it, you can understand what it's doing, and in a sense that, you know, you're training it to eat coffee, but it's training you at the same time. So that's kind of what you need, is a simple, easy project, so you don't fail right out of the gate. And I always warn, don't try to go after something too complicated, because if you do fail or don't have the results that you want on the first run and you're excited about it, then you fell off the bike and you may never get on the bike again.
Yeah.
So keep it simple.
All right, and we'll just finish it up with how people can find more information about your company and what you're doing.
Well, I own Mushroom Mountain, so if you go to mushroommountain.com, there's it's an interpretive site. Lots of videos, lots of information. Spawn is available, but you know, education comes first. You have to understand how to use it, you know, and how to plant the mycelium to make mushrooms grow. So education first.
All right. Well, thanks. We really enjoyed your lecture today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts. All around me, a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. All right, we're with Dan Gregory. He just did a presentation on breaking ground in vacant lots. If you would just like to introduce yourself and what you're doing out with Grow Hartford.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Gregory. I'm the farm manager for Grow Hartford. We are an urban farm in the city of Hartford, Connecticut. We grow over 20,000 pounds of produce, four sites every year, and it goes through to CSAs, farmers markets. We donate to food pantries. We have a youth program where we involve 10 to 20 youth every year in bird farming and learning about food access in the city.
Awesome. Thanks for your presentation. I'm leaving today with a lot of ideas on what I can do to help in my city and do a little bit of urban farming as well.
Awesome.
All right, thanks.
They produce fewer wastes. They don't compact the soil nearly as much. All these factors combined make them more appropriate to keep in an urban environment. So that excludes cows, sheep, goats, pigs. I wouldn't consider those micro livestock. And that's not to say that they have no place in the city. They certainly can. But there's just other animals that are easier to keep in the city, and those animals tend to be smaller. So what is included in my list of micro livestock are, well, number one, chickens, certainly ducks, other types of fowl, turkeys can certainly be appropriate. Pigeons, I'll talk a lot about the benefits of raising pigeons. animal that's very well adapted to live in the urban environment, and rabbits, and even guinea pigs, which I have no experience raising as anything other than a pet. But yeah, it's certainly eaten by many people around the world and raised as a small type of animal. You could extend the definition of micro livestock to include obviously things like fish or insects, but just for the purposes of today, we're not going to have a conversation about those. That's a whole another huge conversation. Has anybody never held a chicken before? Okay, everybody's going to get a turn, but let's start. I really want the people who've never touched or held a chicken before.
I mean, it's on video. It's already on video. Yeah.
And you all can pass it around. You can give it a name too. I don't think this one has a name. My daughters give some of them names. But the one thing you want to do is you want to sort of make sure that you got the wings pinned down because they can flap and yeah, smack you in the face a little bit. So yeah.
Let me show how I do
Chicken 101. Good way to hold it is like this. Just holding the wings in so that they can't get away from you. They can't really fly. So we don't have to worry. I thought about bringing a pigeon, but I'm like, you know what? It's probably gonna end up there, and I'll never get it back.
This one's name is going to be Rudolph.
Okay.
That's a girl.
Yeah, these are all. She's a hen. Yep, a female.
Well, her name will be Rudolpha.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to hold this chicken?
Yeah, you can pass them around. So I mean, to me, working in an urban environment with kids and with school groups, one of the greatest benefits of having chickens is just to teach basic ecological literacy, to bring in kids and say, hey, when you eat chicken McNuggets, nominally speaking, this comes from a chicken. Or the same thing, when you eat an egg, this is where it's coming from. And I get a lot of kids who, it's like they understand chicken is an animal and chicken is a food, but there's not necessarily a connection being made between them. So really, just starting at that point, it's really important to develop that sort of understanding of relationships and connections. Albany, like a number of cities, unfortunately, actually has a prohibition on keeping chickens or any kind of livestock whatsoever. Interestingly, rabbits are okay because they are not considered livestock; they're considered pets. I don't really understand where the boundaries are, and we'll get into this conversation about legalities around it, but. We are one of two organizations in the city that are permitted to keep them because somebody was smart enough when the prohibition was enacted to include a clause that says it's permissible for nonprofit or educational purposes. So that's how we're able to get away with it. So I see a big part of our mission is doing just basically what I call chicken education. Letting people, at least initially see them in the distance and, they're over there, they're okay. They're not going to fly over, they're not going to rip your eyeballs out, they're not going to give everybody avian flu, they're not going to, they're actually not very noisy at all, especially if you don't have a rooster, which is reasonable. And if you take care of them, if you properly manage them, they're not going to smell at all. And which is, a lot of the reasons that people give as to why they don't want chickens are really not founded at all. Alright. You can pick up a rabbit like you pick up a kitten. Just don't stick your finger in their mouth. Yeah. They might mistake it for a carrot, that would be all.
Alright.
You can hold one by the scruff like this. It doesn't hurt them. It's like that's how the mother moves the babies around. It's just like a cat. So it's actually okay to pick them up that way.
Do I have to lay it down?
No, they probably just sit there. Yeah, rabbits. Rabbits are cute, fluffy mammals.
I love driving through cities and looking for mushrooms while I'm driving. I dare say that it's much worse than texting. I should have that on the back of my car. Distracted driving equals looking for mushrooms while you're trying to find where you're going. Mushrooms are, in a sense, they're urbanites. We create debris. We create the platform and the environment for them. We're kind of destructive. We cut the grass, it falls, they grow up. Even more so than in a forest environment. You might find more mushrooms in an urban environment if you just go out. When I'm not finding anything, I just go drive through town. Look at people's yards. There's a lot of irrigation in there. Mushrooms love water. So this is a fairy ring growing on the Columbia University campus. I was walking students around. Not all fairy rings are edible. In fact, most of them are probably not. Green sport parasols. This is an agaricus. This was an edible species that I've found, and it's good luck. Jump in the middle, take a picture, and post it. Right? Urban environments, they are very highly compatible with gardens, community gardens. So what a great combination when you're dealing with mushrooms who need shade and moisture and water. It's only perfectly obvious that they belong together in an urban garden setting. Whether it's in your yard, whether it's in the park, whether it's in one of these community gardens here. So there's lots of opportunity. And you could just look at this photo and say, would you grow there if you were a mushroom?
Yeah.
My class, you turned into mushrooms. I told you to. Yes,
Yeah.
I would love to be a mushroom right in here.
So I live up in New Hampshire, near the Massachusetts-Vermont border, and we're on 13 acres, but we have a 1 acre production farm. And it's hard to say I'm an urban farmer, especially in New Hampshire, but in 2007 I left full-time farming on 30 acres to took a full-time job, which I'll talk about here in a moment, and moved to a city. And one of the ways I just wanted to keep my own sanity and the sanity of my family was to remain in commercial farming at some level, knowing I had a full-time off-farm job. But in addition to that, I was able to start and manage an urban farm. And so within that, I was able to then relate to a lot of what I learned on that farm. When we bought this farm 3 years ago, even though it's on 13 acres, we're right in the neighborhood, we're on city water. The plot we're on had a house on it that was burned down. I think it was one of the Yankee mentalities that they put up the house without thinking about zoning and regulations, and once the town started catching on, they just burned it down. So we were very concerned about our soil and contaminants. So a lot of what we learned in managing this farm in the city, we then relate to our farm now, especially in terms of small-scale production. So we do a small CSA, we do a couple restaurant and wholesale accounts, and in addition to that, a lot of it's changed going from 30 acres down to less than 1. I'll talk about goal setting and how that affected too, but a lot of that changed also in my lifestyle, taking a full-time job and then also starting to have kids and how that related. So we'll talk about that and how that changed over time. We also do a little bit of livestock water, that we're not having to dig a well, put in pumps, and manage systems like that we're really talking about going up to an existing infrastructure and water system and just plugging in, hooking up a hose or something, and using that water that we assume is safe. It's being tested. And within the new food safety regulations, one of the big components right now is having to monitor water and do water testing. And so this may also be an advantage once the regulations are actually finalized, that you can actually go to your municipality and ask them for their water testing samples that they do every month as well, as opposed to having the cost come down on the farmer, which is a big issue right now. Climate. Urban areas tend to be 4 to 8 degrees warmer than rural areas and less windy. And for us, this was something we looked at as sort of natural season extension, that we were able to use that to our advantage so that we got crops into market earlier than rural farmers. So the price was higher, and then when the bigger farms came in with more product, the same product, price dropped, we were able to back out a little bit, bring in novelties, exotics, until the price went up at the end of the season, and just take advantage of that natural climate change that benefited us in getting that premium price. Wildlife is much different. We're really talking about dogs, cats, people, as opposed to deer. Although I will say, the farm I had in Pennsylvania, one of my plots was near a small little wooded area, so I did have a deer issue, and I had an 8-foot deer fence in my front lawn, and neighbors were not too pleased with that. But again, it's much different than what we're trying to keep out in terms of the rural area. Proximity to markets. Being closer to more markets, less time commuting and traveling to get to these markets. I actually worked with an urban farmer who sold out at market, which isn't always a good thing, but he was able to leave market, go home, restock, come right back to market, and start selling again, just because he was that close. So it gives you more proximity, different customer bases as well, which I'll share some examples later. But also this opportunity to be multi-locational. Is anyone here on several different plots? Yeah? Any thoughts in terms of managing it?
It's a little difficult.
Difficult.
Yeah.
Yep. So a lot of farmers, because they have them, they look at it as an advantage because it gives them enough space to grow to meet their income. I had problems too. it was very difficult to manage my workflow and schedule, especially in terms of harvest and you know, not wanting to go to each plot just to do one thing that I wanted to set up my schedule so that while I was on that plot, I was doing my weeding, doing my planting, and everything was taken care of then. But it was difficult. So this is a farm I've been working with in South Carolina, Columbia. It's the first urban farm in South Carolina called City Roots Urban Farm. Just a really great farm. So he was one of the presenters last week with me, and this webinar is archived on the actual
get back to place, face markers. Wait for the excess baggage there. In your minds, go forward and back and forward. 2, 3, 4. With your markers, switch places. Now you can swing your markers. Swing your marker once and a half for once. First couple of this session. First 2 couples of this session. And left. To the left.
I'm just a caboose over here. I understand.
Keep going, guys.
Breaking the chain, Will. Breaking the chain. We're breaking the chain.